Going into the new year, and I know that this is kind of a sequel to a previous video from a couple of weeks ago about how most people, one of the most common New Year's resolutions is to stop smoking. So, just a couple of weeks later, maybe even a couple of days later, you got the little itch. Okay, you start to really miss that thing that you would do multiple times a day, and you are just tired of the little patches, or maybe the little stupid rechargeable gimmick is just really making you mad, and you're trying to buy back in and rationalize your thoughts. It's like, oh, it's not so bad if I just have one, and then one turns back into two, and then two turns back into your pack-a-day habit. You don't want to fall back into that same old cycle, and I guess big tobacco is trying to rehabilitate its image. I don't know why or how, or I don't know why this is still so seductive. It's like, well, I guess because it looks so cool, right? Sure thing. In September, Imperial Tobacco Canada, of course this is a Canadian thing, a Canadian subsidiary of British American Tobacco, was awarded the Great Place to Work certification by eponymously named organization, one of the leading authorities on workplace culture. Of course, man, what have I seen in a study? This might not be true, but it would make a lot of sense. 60% of people are, in some form or fashion, employed by the government in Canada. If you've ever had any inklings as to why Canada is in the state that it's in, and I know I don't want to get too political on this channel, I just normally like to talk about things that interest me that don't have much to do with, the more politically charged content that's over on the other channel, but that makes a lot of sense, okay? And why Canada would be buying into this stuff is because, well, smoke taxes are incredibly high as well. So if there's ways to try to make big tobacco look a little bit better and, make the government a little bit more money, you can understand why this is kind of happening in the place that it is. Okay, since then, the Imperial Tobacco Canada representatives have met with graduate students across the country, including University of Toronto's Rotman School of Management, York University's Shulkman, School of Business, and McGill University des Salts Faculty of Management, urging them to come and join as we build a better tomorrow that you're not likely to see. At least you could. It's just with blackened lungs. As of May, Imperial Tobacco Canada was listed as President's Circle member of the University of Toronto's website to acknowledge their vital financial support at the leadership level. This is so disgusting. Despite Big Tobacco's efforts to renormalize itself, we should all be very wary of engaging in its self-described bold, fast, empowered corporate culture. I wonder how many smoke breaks they mandate throughout the day, because that would be very interesting. It's like, no, we don't try our own supply. We don't get high on our own supply. Come on now. British American Tobacco, or BAT to its friends, and other big tobacco companies have known about the clear links between smoking and a host of diseases, including cancer, since at least the 50s. Yeah, so for 70 years, and they're like, no, don't look over there. See, look at how cool James Dean looks. Despite this, they didn't disclose their internal damning evidence. Yeah, of course not. Okay, thank you for smoking. Thank you for smoking. And why do you think some of the biggest lobbyists, even in the United States, are consistently, heads of big tobacco firms? Why do you think they got e-cigarettes banned? Okay, even though that it's owned, or they were purchased out. That entire spider web is very detailed, and I might have to go over that in some form or fashion, either here or on the main channel, something like that. It's interesting in the most morose ways. Instead, they aggressively undermined mounting scientific evidence of the public health risks associated with their products through their sophisticated array of deceitful strategies and tactics. Like, come on, who doesn't love Joe Camel? Come on, he's so goddamn cool. These included funding dubious research, relying on allies that didn't disclose their links to the industry, and along with other forms of aggressive lobbying and marketing. Yep. Fast forward 70 years, and tobacco remains the leading cause of cancer worldwide today. Epidemiologist Prabhat Jha estimates that one death results for every million cigarettes sold. Well, if you look at it like that, that's not too bad. In the first half of 2022 alone, British American Tobacco sold 303.4 billion cigarettes globally. Cigarettes kill between 1/2 to 2/3 of users and approximately 8 million people worldwide annually. Yeah, but according to some doctors on Twitter, okay, anti-science rhetoric is actually killing more people in regards to the coof, so don't worry about it. Big Tobacco is still alive and well despite the colossal efforts. If it's still alive and well and they're selling over 300 billion smokes in the first half, okay, so they'll probably get close to what, 750 billion cigarettes by the end of the year. Like, come on, is it really a colossal effort to shut them down? Partly in the result of a renormalization strategy. What are they trying to do? Okay, big tobacco companies hit proverbial rock bottom in the early 90s and 2000s when they were facing several major lawsuits centered on the massive morbidity and mortality of cigarettes, the industry's extensive efforts to conceal and manipulate evidence, and its complicity in smuggling its own products around the world. Yeah, I remember some of that stuff because I'm of an age where I remember, and I've had family members smoke for as long as I can remember, so I remember the original packaging, okay? At best, some of my earliest memories, and all of them involve smoking in some form or fashion, even though I've never had one in my entire life, and I'll swear on any holy book you would put in front of me, okay? No drink, no drugs, no none of that stuff. That's not my scene. But anyways, I still remember the packaging. It started out, I might have seen something without anything, but at least there was a white box that was on top that would just have black, regular ass Times New Roman font on top where it's like smoking is dangerous. And then you eventually started to get the more graphic pictures, and I think they've kind of reverted back to not quite as disgusting as like the blackened lungs, okay, or somebody's, face that's just with a rotted off jaw. They've kind of walked that back just a little bit, but I remember when they would be, just a big, huge players, filters, displays at the convenience store. They would have prominent placing behind the till. That was mostly just so nobody would steal the packs because, the addicts that are out there, okay. But then they had to put everything behind a cupboard or at least curtain, but it's like everybody still knows the smokes are right behind there, okay. If you want them, you just ask for them. It's not that, tough to figure out. Another significant blow to the industry was the adoption of the landmark World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. I'm sure it was great. In 2005, dedicated to reducing tobacco demand and supply. Yet 20 years later, big tobacco companies continue to increase their revenue and profit. Wow, imagine that. A World Health Organization policy that didn't end up working. Wow, who could have possibly seen that coming? Facing a potential decline post the WHO, FCTC, British America Tobacco, Philip Morris International. I think per capita, the biggest lobbyists in all of Washington, D.C. have links back to Philip Morris. I'm pretty sure of that. You'd have to fact check me, but continuing on, and other big tobacco companies sought to rebrand themselves from corporate pariahs to socially responsible companies. See, unlike Twitter, we still have wine on tap. Keen on partnering with governments as well as internal organizations, non-governmental organizations, and universities. British America Tobacco now claims to behave ethically in all we do. Well, now we do it. Just don't. Hey, at least we don't have slave wage labor rolling our cigarettes, okay? You can look down you can feel superior about not making any Chinese kids jump off the top of Foxconn to make their iPhones. You just simply sell cigarettes. This is so nefarious. Its rebranding has involved agreements with customers and law enforcement agencies on how to address the illicit trade of tobacco products, despite significant and growing evidence that the industry is still complicit in it. What? No. Big Tobacco's anti-illicit trade efforts have focused on undermining policy-disrupting competitors and selling more of its own products, not tackling illicit trade per se. In Canada, Big Tobacco is used the specter of illicit trade to argue against taxation, plain packaging, menthol bans, and other effective public health measures, including through third parties such as the National Coalition Against Contraband Tobacco and direct lobbying of government officials and parliaments. All right. So yeah, that's eventually going to work because it makes the government money, and the government loves money. Another central part of the tobacco industry's rebranding focuses on the smoke-free future. Through risk-reduced products, notably vaping. Except for the ones that they don't like. Then they'll just use them as pariahs. And it's like, see, we're such a good people. And I was like, no, you're not. No. However, there are real health risks associated with vaping. Yeah, it's not exactly risk-free, but it's so much better than big tobacco. And they're just trying to, big tobacco owns all of your different, vaping solutions anyway, so they're still getting paid. They're just trying to figure out, how can we transition people off of cigarettes and let them vape, because it's more socially acceptable to vape indoors, and we could have people smoking more, at least smoking more of our products. Is just, how can we make that transition? Vaping has a particular attraction among young people, putting them at more risk for diseases. The tobacco industry has a long track record of blatantly lying about the harms caused by their products. Yeah, that's why, some of those things, it's like, okay, cool. So what are the risks of vaping? I don't know. Well, what are the chemicals that are involved in these vapes to have them taste like watermelon and strawberry, grape, or ice something or other? And it's like, well, we don't know for sure. So how do you know if something doesn't cause anything, but you can't tell us what ingredients are in there that we can't draw any sort of evidence out of in order to directly connect them to gum disease, any sort of dental problems, respiratory conditions? If we can't do all that, stop it. How much money will it take to make the question stop? If anything, vaping products have created a rift within the public health community in all too familiar divide and conquer strategy of the tobacco industry. Vaping may also serve as a distraction from the continued commercial focus on the industry on deadly cigarettes, which continues to account for 84% of British America Tobacco's revenue worldwide. Wow! So cigarettes still account for 84% of the revenue. That's why they're trying to figure out how you can get the people off of the old stuff onto the new stuff and maintain profits. Given the fundamental and irreconcilable conflict between the tobacco industry interests and public health policy interests, the WHO repeatedly warned state parties to the WHO, FCTC, including Canada, against tobacco industry engagement. Yet the Canadian government officials routinely met with tobacco industry representatives. Yeah, of course, money talks, the WHO walks. Experts in Canada considered the renormalization of tobacco as one of the great risks to progress in tobacco control. I'm not even like a big fan of governments, stepping in and regulating any of that stuff. Obviously, if you want to, I don't partake in that stuff, okay? I have family members that I wish wouldn't partake in that stuff, but ultimately I can't, walk around knocking smokes or vapes out of people's hands and mouths, okay? It's just, these companies are lying, and it's a very costly habit to have. If you'd like to live long enough to know your grandchildren, that would be kind of cool. Or, have kids, or grow to a ripe old age, just including everybody in this. Don't want to get specific about anything. Why would you rely on the information provided from a proven liar over and over again? And then also, those proven liars are in bed with the bigger liars in the country. So why are you putting your faith in that type of stuff? Why? Because it tastes good? It's like, what's the benefit? I constantly think, whenever the subject comes up, what's the benefit of smoking? I can't come up with one. I legitimately cannot come up with one, but people continue to do it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and they continue to put themselves and others at risk. And I don't get it. And if you're looking to make the choice going into the new year, at least know the stats, at least know who's benefiting off of this, okay? Because it isn't you, it isn't your family, it's big tobacco, it's big business, and it's big government. So hopefully that at least will contribute to you making the smart decision going into 2023. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.